And welcome back. I hope you took on the challenge and won't leave today without having helped someone in this room. So that is really exciting way to end the day. Now we have a panel discussion about the roadmap for fossil-free Sweden. It's a chance for us to show how Sweden is planning on reaching a fossil-free future. And we have a really interesting panel for this session as well. We have Mats Gustafsson, who is the director of Boliden. We have Thomas Hörnfeldt, Vice President Sustainability and Public Affairs of SSAB. Karin Thorman, Business Intelligence Investigator Skogsindustrierna. Martin Wallstrand, Strategy Manager at Vattenfall, who will give the perspective from Vattenfall's point of view. And Svante Axelsson, National Coordinator of Fossilfritt Sverige, who are holding and arranging this panel. And we're really excited to hear about how the industries are working together in order to handle one of the greatest emittents of CO2 and carbon footprint in Europe today. Thank you so much. Welcome up.
Thank you. Yes, very nice to be here. Thanks for being invited to this seminar. And I'm Svante Axelsson, National Coordinator for Fossil-Free Sweden. It's a governmental initiative to promote the transition of the Swedish economy to a fossil-free economy. And I think it's very important to have this type of strategy because people now are some of us is more afraid about changing our society than climate change. So we are focused on storytelling to describe how great it could be if Sweden is fossil-free, what type of benefits we get, and also reduce obstacles, because we see that many companies and local communities are very ambitious. So we want to reduce obstacles so they can go further on. So it's one of our strategies to really change this society. And one focus we have is, of course, to collect more members, actors, to support the fossil-free vision. Because the vision now is that we will be one of the first fossil-free welfare nations. And I stress the word welfare nations, because we need a good example. So we got to race out of the fossil-free societies. And I'm very proud that we have so many supporters that sign up and support the vision that we could be one of the first fossil-free nations. And one of our discussion is, of course, how we see about the future. And I think the most interesting thing just now is not this, because it's this. I think the change in our mindset is the most interesting thing just now. Because if you remember, here at that time, 2009, we discussed the burden sharing, the costs all be in the front. The debate was focused on the costs and the burden, and it was not so successful. And now we have changed the mindset, I would say, in the whole world, but especially in Sweden, because we have more of this in our hearts. How we can go further on, how we can get a welfare nation, how we can get better competitiveness if we are in the forefront. And I think that's make me really happy, because now we have changed also to discuss climate issue as an environmental problem. We see the climate issue as a strategy for better business, for better export. And we connect climate issues with other targets in our society. We get sort of synergy effects, and it's much easier to work if we say that the climate policy in Sweden is a sort of export strategy. And that's what we now see in many branches. So that's very, very happy about that, because it's not, for many years ago, it was only focused on what could be cost effectiveness in a short perspective. And now we are talking about how we can create a good business case and also a good export possibility. And I'm very happy to work with these branches, but that is one of our strategies, to invite different branches so they can tell us how they could be fossil free and also increase their competitiveness. And it has been very exciting to follow your work, and also I'm very impressed by what you have done, because now we have 9 different branches that all of them tell us how they could be fossil-free and increase the competitiveness. And I think this is unique in the world, that we have voluntary roadmaps from the branches where really accept the target to be 2045 and see the possibility of also increase the competitiveness. So what could be better than to invite some representatives from different branches? And I will invite Mats Gustafsson from the mining sector to introduce your speech and your presentation. Warm welcome.
Thank you. How are you? Thank you, Svante. You hear me?
Yes.
Good. My name is Mats Gustafsson. I'm responsible for energy in a metal and mining company called Boliden AB. Where do you push?
Sorry, it's better.
It's better?
Yeah.
Okay. There it was. To start with, when we met Svante the first time, we had already decided what way to go. And this is the fundamental of that. It's cooperation between a lot of companies with a clear ambition to be fossil-free using technique and knowledge. And one have to remember that a mining company or a metal company is depending on the world market price. So the only thing we can compete in is cost. Those companies together has helped us to move forward very quickly in the intention to be fossil-free. There are certainly challenges in this, and we are focused on the transportation. Most of our equipment in mining is mobile, and we are using fossil fuel, which we are now converting into electricity, even using a lot of batteries. It's good for us because the working environment underground is very positively affected by that. That gives us a lot of opportunities. Adding to that, you can say that using a lot of batteries, which means that we have an opportunity to storage electricity that are produced by wind or solar. So we think that we got another business opportunity with that. The other thing with processes and things that are going to need a lot of research to solve. The most important when we are looking on the politicians is that we need to access the reliable source of electricity. And this is a fundamental thing where we are moving to use a totally different commodity. And we're going to be dependent on that for a long time. And we feel that here is a lot of uncertainties. And a lot of the cost for electricity is created by political decisions. And that means that it's very unpredictable. So hopefully we can have some clear answers on how this is going to be solved. And we have people representing Vattenfall, so they probably have a good answer. As I said, the metal producers are price takers on the world market price. The only thing we can compete with is cost. So we need to be very efficient. Otherwise, we not survive. Also, it's a quite clear tendency that this change of society is going to need a lot of more metals. So we think we are in a good position to support the society with that. So to finalize this 8 minutes, I would say that we have a very good position to succeed, but we need some support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mats. We come back to you later, but a very short question. When do we have you can sit down here if you want.
Yeah, sure.
When do we have the first fossil-free mine in Sweden?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
You have the problem is the connection from mine and to the mine, connection with other things in the mining area. So we need to find solution on that. Otherwise, in the mine, especially in an underground mine, there shouldn't be any problem today to have it totally fossil free.
Okay. And is it costly to change from these fossil lorries and machines to electricity?
It's a relative question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in the bottom line, you need to earn money anyway.
Yeah.
So you need to find the solutions that make it more profitable.
Yeah. And one funny thing I heard from you is that the consumption of electricity will go down when you make these mines driven by electricity.
Yes.
Yeah. Short answers, very concrete. We come back to you later, Mats, and warmly welcome to Mats Hörnfeldt, SSAB. A rock star, you can say, but the steel sector, because I think the steel sector was the first to really shout out the possibilities, and it's will be very nice to listen to you and how you will manage this challenge.
Yeah, right. I feel like a picture of anticlimax somehow. but it is true that we were, as SSAB, steel company, member of Fossil Free Sweden as soon as you could become a member. And we were also, as an industry, the first one that started our work with the climate roadmap, one of the 9 first. And the Swedish steel industry is relatively big, considering the size of the country. We have a relatively high number of highly specialized companies. We're a small country, but each company has found a niche where we can deliver world-leading products. But of course, being in the steel industry, you're a process industry, you're an energy-intensive industry, and we do have some challenges. Compared to many other countries, we have relatively low CO2 emissions, but we are a significant source of CO2. We stand for 11% of the Swedish CO2 emissions, which is quite a lot. My company alone has 10. I'll come back to that soon. If you want to compare that with something, road traffic is 30% in Sweden approximately. Heavy trucks around 11 out of those 30. Anyway, the fact that we are energy or CO2 efficient has mainly to do with the Swedish electricity mix. The power grid in Sweden is virtually CO2 free, which is something that we can be proud of, and something that Vattenfall has contributed to, of course. But actually, the biggest contribution that the Swedish steel industry can do to reducing environmental impact in the world is something that I'm not going to talk about today. That is making sure that our customers use as little steel as possible. That's actually our business idea, believe it or not, because we're world leading in making high strength steels. The stronger steel you use, the less you need. And more importantly, the less energy your products will need. If you look at a heavy, I hope we don't have Scania today. If you look at a heavy truck, for example, the environmental impact of all the stuff that goes into the truck, steel, aluminum, plastic, glass, leather, whatever, is 10%. 90% comes from the use phase of the product. So when we can, as a Swedish industry, contribute to lighter engines, lighter chassis, and so on, that actually has an enormous significant impact when it comes to reducing environmental impact. But when we look at our own industry, we have process-related emissions in terms of energy. We use as much electricity as we can, but we have some heating processes where we're using primarily natural gas today. The Swedish industry is on a road where we leave heavy oil behind. We go towards natural gas for one reason, and that is that it is identical to biogas from a chemical point of view. So as soon as we have biogas available, we can switch over. However, the reason that my own company stands for 10% of the Swedish CO2 emissions is not that we're worthless at what we're doing. We're actually pretty good. But when you make steel out of iron ore, which is what we do, you have to consider the fact that iron ore is pretty much iron oxide. And since we invented the blast furnace in 1400 something, we've been using, well, not me personally, but the industry, we've been using carbon in the form of coke to remove the oxygen from the iron ore. Then the oxygen moves out of iron ore and forms together with carbon, unfortunately, CO2. So if you make 1 ton of hot metal, you get 1.5 ton of CO2 as part of the deal. That's a chemical fact. You can't really do much about it. You can screw it up a bit more, many companies do, but in Sweden we're pretty close to this lower chemical limit. And for many, many years we were very proud, borderline smug, about the fact that we had the world's most CO2 efficient steel making process. But then we realized that sometimes doing your best just isn't good enough. We still have a significant environmental impact. And then we're thinking and thinking and thinking about what to do. And then we realized there is an alternative method called direct reduction, where you use natural gas. It's a little better from an environmental point of view, but it's only commercially viable if you happen to build your steel plant on top of a natural gas resource, which has happened. There is a plant in Texas, for example. There are some in India, a few in the Middle East. But then we were thinking and thinking and thinking, and suddenly we realized, what if we were using not natural gas, but hydrogen gas instead? Then the oxygen in the iron ore would move over to the hydrogen and form not CO2, but water as a byproduct, which has certain environmental benefits. And we could use the fact that Sweden has a CO2-free power network to generate hydrogen out of water using electricity. And since you're energy experts, you know this already, but we have a higher and higher portion of variable renewable energy sources in the world and in this country. And we actually have, in the middle of the day when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, we have excess electricity in this country. And then we can put all that electricity to use, produce hydrogen that we can then store and use throughout the day. And that way you can use the fact that SSEB will be a very big electricity producer to actually balance the Swedish power network and make sure that we can use every bit of electricity that we have in the network. So that way we can not only produce fossil-free steel, but also making sure that we promote renewable energy sources in Sweden. Sometimes I get an applause when I say it.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. When do you think that you get pay for this valuable fossil-free steel? When do the consumer will pay?
To begin with, I have to apologize. There were a couple of things that I forgot to say here. I get so excited. We don't do this ourselves. We do it together with, you guessed it, Vattenfall, our electricity provider, and LKAB, our iron ore provider. We've done a pre-study for 2 years, and everything that we have found out so far has made us even more convinced that this is the way to go. It will be commercially available sometime after 2035. But if we could do this today, this steel would be 20-30% more expensive than conventional steel. And I think some people would be prepared to pay that already today. If you put that into a passenger car, for example, the percentage of price increase for the car, because we don't get paid that much, wouldn't be that high, actually. But we firmly believe that the price for CO2 emissions would go up and the price of electricity will go down. So when we're done, this will be not only environmentally, but also commercially competitive. And by 2045, by coincidence, we will be the world's first fossil-free steel company.
That's great. Thanks for that, Thomas. And the next speaker is Karin Thorman from forest industry. So you have solutions for everyone.
I have the solutions. Yes.
So let us hear what you can give us.
Should I have a microphone? Thank you. So, my name is Karin Thorman. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And we have a little bit different situation in the forest industry, as we started already back in the 70s during the energy crisis time, when it was very expensive with oil. We realized, okay, we have a lot of biomass, we should use that instead. So our processes in sawmills are almost entirely fossil-free. There's small, tiny use of oil. And the pulp and paper industry, I'm sorry, I wrote the wrong word there, just forest industry. The pulp and paper industry use 4% of the energy in the processes are fossil energy. So this is like a situation, but we can say that our roadmap, we did one anyway because we realized that the forest sector can also, we could create climate benefits for society. And we do have a challenge regarding the transportation, of course. So the two parts of our roadmap is we drive growth in global economy, bioeconomy, and we should as well, of course, do whatever all we can to phase out the use of fossil energy that we do use. So what do we mean with growth in bioeconomy? We already do that today, of course, because all our products that we produce comes from renewable resources instead of fossil sources. That's one part that we could increase that rather much as we see it. And we also have a goal that we will tenfold the production of biofuels deriving from biomass from forest. So that's our goals. And then the other part, phasing out the use of fossil energy that we do use. First in machinery, both in the forestry and in the factories. We don't see that as a very, very big problem to phase out that until 2030. And that part is also from the using energy sources in the processes won't either be a very, very big deal. We believe that will be possible. The challenge is, of course, the transport. But that is also at the same time, that's a challenge for all society and for all sectors. So that's something we have to do together with other. But we do have a goal to decrease it in different ways. And we have thought quite a lot of how to decrease emissions and CO2 from the use of fossil energy in transport. And we see three main areas to work with. And that's efficiency for all different types of transport, to increase efficiency by loading more in every transport, both for, you could have heavier and longer trucks and trains. We think that is a very important part. Electrification is another part, and there you can see the lower picture. It's a demonstration project out of in Gävle, a little bit north of Stockholm, where you can see the system, and it works very well. It's just a 2 kilometers part of the road, but anyway, it's very exciting, and there are other ways to put electricity into heavy trucks as well. And then the last part is, of course, biofuels. But we won't be able to produce as much biofuels for all transport, so we have to do a lot of different things. And we have thought about what is needed to make our roadmap to become true, or what is it? How to make it happen. And we need a clear promotion of a bioeconomy. And for us that means one part is that we should have access to biomass, assured access to biomass from sustainable managed forests, of course, and also good competitive conditions for forest management, for forest sector. And the second part is maybe the most important, as it's a challenge for the whole society, and that is to enable fossil-free transportation in many different ways. And of course, the third part, more research and innovation is needed, because I believe that we have not seen the final solutions that we will see many new ideas and technologies that will make us be fossil-free. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marit. One short question. I read these different roadmaps, and I know that's a lot of demand for renewables and biofuels. And I know in your roadmap you mentioned 10 terawatt hours, and we use 90 in the traffic sector today. So it's not so much. My question is, can we increase this production, do you think, or must we build more in trees, and must we consume other things to get more biofuels, or can we just increase the biofuels?
Well, in theory, of course, we can increase. You can cut down a tree and you can make biofuels from it, but I don't think that is price efficient, or how you say, it's very expensive to do that. So our idea is that, well, we need to do a lot of other things than just change from fossil fuels to biofuels, because that won't be possible. But as the biofuels is mainly produced through side streams or biostreams in the flow from forest to forest products, because you can use branches and root systems, etc., and you can use chips from the sawmills and produce biofuels from that. And as we increase the normal production, so to say, their side streams becomes bigger, and we can use them for many other things. Biofuels is one of them.
So you still call this production as a rest product? It's not the main product?
Well, for our members, it's not the main product.
No. All right. Thanks for that. We come back to questions later on. Applaud for all these branches, I think, is very successful. And I know that people in Sweden are really happy about these roadmaps, and they see that, oh wow, they have a plan. They have already a strategy. And we have summarized these roadmaps in one little report that we have more here in Ebba somewhere. Yeah, yes. So if you want that Swedish, it will be also translated, of course, because many people abroad are looking at these roadmaps. Now we have the possibility to get some comments from a strategic manager of Vattenfall, Martin Wallstrand.
Thank you very much.
What's your comments on this? Are you shocked?
We did a study about one year ago on when the Swedish climate law was put in place and the target to be fossil-free and climate neutral until 2045, and what that would take. And since then I've worked quite a lot with looking into this whole society transformation to become climate neutral, and not least the industry, which is making up about a third of all our emissions. So the base industry, 4 sectors, is really making up a lot of these emissions, where we saw the steel example here, 11% just within one sector. And I think it's great to see that all industries now are developing roadmaps and I can really feel that the climate topic is no more of a burden, but it is an opportunity. It's a possibility to build a competitive advantage. And the solutions, I think, were well summarized here in the end. The options that you have is basically electrification or biomass or efficiency improvements, and usually there's a combination required. So what we did from a Vattenfall and sort of representing an electricity provider and the sort of system to supply this is to sort of add up the numbers. What does it mean if we put all these roadmaps next to each other? How much is needed in terms of electricity and biomass? And I must say, when I looked at that, I could see the magnitude of this challenge. Sweden has worked for a long time being leading in sort of climate policies. We have reduced our emissions about 1% per year for the last 25 years. Still we have 135 terawatt hours of fossil fuels and feedstock left. That is the same magnitude as all our hydro plants and nuclear plants and wind power installed in all of Sweden together. So it's a massive amount of fossil fuels still in the economy. That needs to be phased out in 25 years. For some, 25 years might seem like a short time. If you're in the energy business, also in mining or in steel or in forestry, 25 years, that's around the corner. So I call this sort of a giant project, but it's a doable one if we work in partnerships. So I think some ingredients that are really necessary to succeed were mentioned, and one is from you, Mats, to secure a stable power supply at affordable prices, and to continue with fossil-free electricity. I think that is the sort of foundation where we can build a competitive advantage and go ahead of. We have a much better position than many other countries in making this transformation. And our forest resources, I think, makes this position even stronger. So I think we have a great starting point to reach that goal you have. To 2045 will be the first welfare nation that is fossil-free.
Mm. Great, and you were part of the solution, of course. And Mats, what you afraid about the price? Do you think Vattenfall will give you the right price, or are you afraid about that?
That's a scary one.
The scary one, yes.
That's a scary one.
But it depends what other countries also do, of course.
Yeah, but one have to remember, we have an advantage for the time being. And Sweden had been using that advantage to develop the industry. If we take away that advantage and get in a position where the price of energy is equal with other countries in Europe, and we taking care of their change to get rid of the fossil fuel, that's not going to be any good position for us. And we need to be very profitable to have the money to convert into the next generation. So that's the tricky part. Another thing that affects that is the cost of the CO2, the EETS system. That's going to affect the electricity price here in the Nordic countries. And we give away money to someone that are produce electricity not using fossil fuel, but they get paid for it. And that disadvantage scares me. And if Vattenfall has a plan to eliminate that for me, I am listening every day.
But do you think you also is more efficient with other companies, perhaps, that they don't need so much?
I think the industry in general, I think I can talk for everybody, has been working with efficiency for so many years. We are looking every day to be more efficient because energy is costing us money. And if we can eliminate to use less energy, it's good. So that's not, we can do more, of course, but I would say that the industry is working with this concept.
Thomas, we talk very much about the possibilities and the willingness to pay and so on, but can you see any obstacles? Do government need to do something just now, or is it good enough?
Well, we have received relatively good support from the government so far. I mean, we have a well-developed system in this country for supporting research. I think that works rather well. We have maybe a less developed system to support infrastructure sometimes. When you actually have finalized the research and you have to build stuff, then it becomes more complicated. And when it comes to building, maybe that's the operative word. We are very careful in this country, and there are a lot of permits that you need to obtain in order to build stuff. And I think there we as a country need to change something, because right now that process is slowing down investment in new technologies. Just because we're so careful about the environment, we delay the improvement of the environment, and that's something that we need to do a lot better. And that is just about administration becoming more efficient, I think. Vattenfall, and if you're in the energy sector, you know this very well, but we wanted to close down one of our CO2 emitters around 2025 and replace that with an electrical process route, which means that we need another 120 kilowatts, preferably a bit more. And so the lead time for that in this country right now is 12 years. And there aren't 12 years until 2025, so we're a bit concerned. And there you have to say, well, you know, Second World War took 6 years. What can be so complicated?
So we need to speed up this permits process. Yeah. Do you need any money when you go from project to the reality?
Yes.
Or do you have state companies that have money themselves?
Well, Vattenfall is rich, of course, but I think that we need to, like I said, we need to find a way to sponsor infrastructure investments also. And of course, when we move from a carbon/coal-based process to an electrical one, we're going to need another 15-20 terawatt hours here, which is, you know, a sizable chunk of energy. And I was actually scared by your numbers right now because the Swedish Energy Authority are working very hard on this energy efficiency kind of thing. But let's face it, this country is becoming more energy efficient, but the electricity consumption is going to increase. And that is something that we need to take into account. That scares me a bit.
I can comment.
Yeah.
This
is position of power.
Yeah, I think that is not. It's starting to get more noted. I think that, but even if the energy efficiency is improving, so in order to produce one unit of something, you need less energy or in buildings, but more and more will be driven by electricity. So when we phase out fossil fuels, it's a great energy efficiency transformation, but we will still need around 50 terawatt hours additional electricity until 2045, and we are phasing out nuclear at the same time. So concerns about the electricity price, I think that's about the balance of supply and demand. We need to build much more electricity.
We have also questions, of course, by the audience. A short question, Karin. How many biorefineries do you think will build up in these 3-4 years? Because we need a lot of biofuels. So you are from the forest industry.
Yes, we're the forest industry, and well, we could say that already our pulp and paper are biorefineries in one way. But I guess that you mean for the biofuel, and I don't know. I have no figures on that.
But we heard from some pine and rotten.
Yeah, there are a few, 5 or 6 different, and I guess that all our members are discussing this. What should we do? Could we change our mix of products, and what could be more, well, a better solution for the future? But it's not the core business today.
Okay.
But it might definitely be for some of them. I don't know.
Without that, we couldn't solve the problem. So the willingness to pay will increase, of course.
Might be, but the problem with that is that it's very, very costly to take out the wood from the forest as well, and then you need some kind of fuel, and if that's too expensive, so it's kind of circle. So
you need
if more efficient transportation is very, very important.
Yeah. Questions?
Yeah, I have one here.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, are you thinking about including algae in your biorefineries in the future, and not just? I know that you're.
Okay, the blue one.
The blue part. Well, I don't think that's the main discussion right now at our members. But I mean, this is the biomass or the trees out there. They are for sale. So anybody that could find out the technology or find a system for making it in an efficient way, either to make a biorefinery to do any chemicals or other things, that's possible. So and they might, of course, both from agriculture and the sea as well. So that's not, you shouldn't be limited to the forest.
Yeah. So you can work with different sectors to include in your biorefinery. It's not like a system order for.
Well, for the moment, that's not the case. But I guess that's more of a infrastructure part as well.
Yeah, me personally, I think it's far greater potential in algae. That's probably not.
Yeah, very exciting. I must admit that.
Perhaps the steel sector will go in that branch.
We have looked into the algae issue. I'm not an expert in that field, so I won't dare to comment. But I think that the key is electrification. That's the only way forward, because the amount of biofuels is limited. But too many companies are planning on taking the easy way out. Say we use biodiesel or we use biogas and whatever. And when it comes to our heating process, it's not the iron ore stuff that we looked at earlier. We think that we can use electrification up to 1,000 degrees or something, but sometimes we need to heat stuff up to 1,200 and so on, and then we need to burn stuff, and then it's biogas is the natural alternative. Unfortunately, in Sweden right now, we're using a lot of biomass for district heating, and that, I think, in the longer context, is borderline stupidity, because heating we can do simply with, well, electricity if need be. So we really need to use the biomass where it's essential also. The airline industry may prefer that to cables, for example, also.
And that's interesting, because we are going to have a new roadmap this autumn. We are going to have 10 more, I think, roadmaps, and one is the heating sector. So they will have the answer, because I really agree. I think the price will be too high to use it in the heat sector. Or what do you think?
So Vattenfall operating district heating, I would like to comment on that. But start in the end, where I totally agree that it's important to see biomass as a scarce resource, and it should be used in the right places where electrification is for some reason not the right choice, like really high temperature in industrial processes.
So can we phase out the biomass from the heat sector?
I don't think so, actually, and I can explain why. I think we should start with district heating. You should look for taking the value of the network. Actually, you build these pipes for hot water, and then you can use all the excess heat that is available from industries. So that should always be the first solution. That's sort of free heat. And then you should use the kind of fuel that no one else wants. And what is that? That's waste, for instance. So currently it's the best way to take care of the waste that can't be recycled is to burn it to produce heat and electricity. So that you should do. But also in district heating, you should top up with some biofuels or with heat pumps when the other options are not enough. And then you should use the biofuels that it can't be used, for instance, to produce liquid fuels. Like you can use the branches and such from the local area. So, and also wood residues that can't be used in other areas. So we can really burn the stuff that no one else can burn.
Yeah. More questions? I think we take three, the last three ones.
What price of electricity should be today that hydrogen would replace carbon in steel industry competitively?
I can't answer that question because the technology isn't there. But like I said, I think it could be competitive already today. But the reason we're not using it today is not a question of cost competitiveness. It is just that we need to develop the process. You have to remember that we've been using carbon to make steel for 1,000 years. So even if it takes us 5 or 7 now, that's pretty darn quick to fix a new industry. If we can do that, and if we can implement that in the rest of the steel industry in the world, we will reduce the CO2 emissions in the world by 7%.
Great.
Which is 55 times the total CO2 emissions of Sweden, if you want to compare it with Sweden.
Yes, please.
Yes, so if we were talking about fossil-free industry, let's say if it's steel or if any other industry, so there could be two possibilities. One is that in any industry, it's important that you have a proper flow that you generate, keep on producing, and then the need for electricity never stops. Or another thing could be that perhaps you have a sudden surge of energy requirement. You need more electricity. So if we talk about fossil-free things like, do you also speak of having renewable energy sources for it, like wind or solar? that supply for your electricity needs. If that is the case, then there is a challenge with that they are intermittent. I mean, if they're there, then they're there. If not, then they're not. So then, how do you tackle with such a challenge when you talk about fossil-free industry?
And we have decided to be 100% renewable 2040. 40.
40. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you
It
said-
is, yeah. The climate target is 45. Yes, some comments on that?
The simple answer is that you produce hydrogen, which we need to do anyway, and that we can do when the power is available. I happen to like to use hydrogen, but even so, if you go into the energy sector, many people promote hydrogen just for the reason that you can use it to store energy.
Mats?
That's perfectly right. But then we forgot the big issue that I pointed out. It's concerning cost. That's going to be expensive. And we are not going to be competitive. Because storage electricity, the cheapest way to do it is probably storage of water. And we have big legislation here in Sweden to do that. That's one thing. If we're going to use battery, hybrid, whatever, that's going to cost money. And if we limit the regulatory power that we have on the grid today, we need to import, and the import is not going to be fossil-free. So there is an issue. And that question is nobody really taking up on the table. And I think that's a fundamental issue.
But the fund, do you agree?
Of course.
The price is going down.
No, price is going
The marginal price is going down. So I wonder what you say.
So we've heard two solutions so far, which I think are really important, and that is producing hydrogen, or it's power to, you can produce hydrogen, ammonia, different kinds of synthetic fuels, and store them, or batteries. The other option is to store it in our hydro dams, which is really important. So I think, and that's a topic that is up on the table now. How much of the hydropower that we can continue to use to make sure that it's sustainable as well and follow the water directives. But we need to then really make sure that we can leverage our assets in hydropower. But there's a third opportunity which has not been mentioned, and that's digitalization. So I think we're used to just, when we need power, we just put the cable in the wall and we use as much power as we like. It should always be available. And I think we need to sort of think the opposite way. And think, okay, now there is power available, I will charge my car, or I will run the heating. You come to that in industries like base material industries. They need sort of a steady flow generator.
But do you think, Mats here, 100% renewables 2040, will the price go up or down for Boliden?
I think we have had a really strong development, really good development on wind power cost, so and PV cost, but it has to do. So I think the technology development, the cost of actually producing, is that's on a trajectory to actually take the cost down. But it depends a lot on sort of regulatory frameworks, and I think the grid bottlenecks has a big impact on this as well. So it's not just producing enough electricity in the country, but actually be able to transport it to the place where you need it at the right time. So I think we need an intelligent digital system with...
Mats, do you believe in that?
First, the hydropower in Sweden has a reduction due to new legislation on 5 terawatt-hours. That's a good start. And another thing is that, we're going to be more depending on others, definitely, but it's not going to be cheaper. The actual price today in Sweden is 45 euros, it's 30 degrees hot outside, some wind, but the nuclear power is down to 68%, and it's probably some disadvantage on some cable to someone, usually is. So in the middle of the end of May, you have a price of 45. Last week we had in Finland a price on the effect market on 2,299 euro per megawatt hour, just to show you the sensitivity when you lose effect. And a digital, if you put some digital things to work, they need electricity quality. That means that they need a certain area to be 50.0.1 hertz something. If that's not the case, it doesn't work. To secure that, you need stability. And that's my question, how to create that stability.
We need a new roadmap about that.
Sure.
We can create that, of course. Time is running, very, very short.
Yeah, the question is to you.
Okay.
When I see the figures, like there are 350 actors already joined.
Yeah.
So what made them to join? Like, is it a bandwagon race that everyone wants to be fossil free, or is it actually they want to become fossil free, contributing to the climate?
Yeah, I think they want to be part of the solution. They want to get inspiration and also knowledge and how they can do. And I think it's like friskis and sweaties in Sweden, you know. You are different, but you want to be there because you want to change. And we help them in with different tools. And I haven't mentioned here, we have the different challenges because we want to give support how they buy the cars, for example, and how they can also promise to be fossil-free, the transport sector. So we have different type of tools for the big group. And today we just talk about one instrument, roadmaps. But I mean that my feeling is that most of the companies in Sweden really have catch the solution from the Paris. And as we heard from SSR and others, they know that they can't sell anything if it's not fossil free or climate neutral 2040. And that's why we see a new logic from the business. Yes, that will be the last word today. Thanks to the panel for to be here, and thanks to the audience, and thanks that we together can make the world first fossil-free wealthy nation. Thank you.